Who among us has not been sitting down for a performance or recording of the timeless classic Hamlet? Watched that first scene where Hamlet's father's ghost appears on the ramparts and thought, yeah, I'd hit that. Today, we are going to be delving not only, sorry, my other future one was talking about data from the next generation and being like, yes. Um, anyways, that's what we're doing today, people. Have you ever had an idea that on the surface of it seemed like a really good idea and you have a good ah ha 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 with your fellow book friends about a topic and you write it down on the very detailed spreadsheet that Virginia keeps for this and you have it there and you're like, oh, what a fun topic that will be until it comes down to the actual day where you have to do it and you realize what a horrible mistake that you have made. Um, Welcome to Keep It Fictional, a podcast for book lovers by book lovers, where we have made perhaps some errors in judgment. I am joined here today by my fellow sufferers, Sadie, Virginia, and Emma. And today we are delving into two topics that on the surface of it have nothing in common. And then when you delve deep into it, also have nothing in common. But they are topics that somehow made it onto the spreadsheet. And then one of us thought that it would be really great to explore it. So today we are talking about ghost romance or future romance. Uh-huh. So if you've ever been interested in non-corporeal courtship or futuristic flirtation, this is the episode for you. And whether you felt again like a deep attraction to Hamlet's dad or Data, like we have got you covered. So I'm interested from my book friends, how hard was it to choose between the past or future's past or past future? Sadie, how about you?
I don't know why, but I always solidly knew that I was going to do ghosts. Not sure why that was. Yeah, it fit more. Don't want to look into that too much. Yeah, the choice between the two was simple. Other things were not, but the choice between the two was simple.
I'm so intrigued by that for you as a person, but also I also instinctively knew like there's no way I'm going future. I am absolutely doing a ghost romance. And there was no question. I didn't even bother looking into the future. I was just like, I gotta find someone who's like hot for a ghost. Um, and I did. Virginia, was this a tough pick for you?
Oh, of course not. A romance topic, a topic for Virginia? What the hell are you talking about? Never. Um, it's weird because I feel like I want to do none of them, but um, absolutely not ghosts. Like I did read a book that has a ghost romance in it. I didn't decide not to use it. But I did read one of those. Those are easier to find, I think. Depends on how you define futuristic romance, I think. Um, but yeah, like it was kind of like no space, but going to space, like absolutely. So yeah.
Weirdly enough, having tried to find a ghost romance, not a romance where a ghost happens to be there, but when someone is romancing a ghost was strangely more difficult. And I feel like future romance would be a little easy because it's got the whole space opera genre that you could kind of play with. Yeah, Emma's nodding. So, Emma, I'm guessing that's what direction you went.
Yeah, there's an author that I like who does like sapphic romances and also space operas. So I was like, perfect. She has a 2024 book. It's got romance, it's got space, it's got futuristic stuff going on. So I actually found it kind of easy to find one for this topic, but I like did not even humor the idea of doing ghosts. I was just like, this will be easy for me. I'll get to read about pining lesbians. It'll be great.
But just as the ghost one, it cannot just be like a romance that happened in space, right? It has to be a romance with some weird space things, just like you're romancing a ghost. I know Emma's choice and my choice are also like you're not just a space like a romance that happens to happen in space. It's a lot more complicated than that. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily a easy choice or a logical choice, but there we are.
We do seem to have divided very neatly into two camps of people who like it seems like romancing a ghost would be easier than romancing a spaceship. Is space inherently more romantic to you? I am very curious.
No, no.
I think there is like the like survival of like it's just you and me and the stars. Like, is that romantic?
I'm gonna let Emma answer that because you're asking the wrong person. Nothing is.
Well, in my book, the characters are trauma bonded by fighting like a space eldritch creature that's like on the verge of killing everybody. So romantic, I don't know. Does kissing happen on a spaceship? Yes.
And like Sadie, would you say that there is a like inherent romance to ghosties?
I don't think so, but I think that it might fall in like the this can never be, and so that's what makes it more appealing because I know this could never be, and it's like the forbidden kind of thing. But I don't think ghosts as like a form, as a being, are necessarily romantic. But I think it would depend
So
on the
glad you said
ghost.
that. But does it have to be a ghost of a person that you know? Or like what is better? A ghost of a person that you know or just any random ghost? Because you could be like, I won't let go of this person. And now that even though the person is dead, doesn't matter, right? Or like I just romance ghost.
You're
Anyway.
just romancing a random ghost.
All right.
Yeah, you really are. Like, as a survey that I did of the literature in frantically trying to find a book for this, it's mostly like a ghost. It's like a meet cute, a meet oot, oot. Yeah. Um, whatever. I'll work on it. It really is like this just like this strange ghost that I happen upon, and I'm like, yeah, this is the one for me. And I think it is like a weird nostalgia tinge thing, along with what Sadie is saying of like the pining away for something that can never happen. And never once in all of the ghost romances that I have read, which is five, does anyone be like, whenever they espouse something like truly bonkers from the past, and the ladies aren't like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, you're like a Spanish conquistador from like that. Oh, yikes. Actually, I have somewhere to be and I can't continue this romance so sad. Yeah, and I'm not a big ghost romance person. I prefer like scary ghost stories. Like I see them as like a malevolent force or something like that. I find that much more interesting or in like a mystery sense. I don't usually see them as like, as we said, romanceable characters. And yet here we are. In the same way that I don't usually see spaceships as romanceable, but uh, maybe we'll find out. Maybe you'll change my mind. Speaking of which, we're going to start in the past and then go to the future present. So we're going to start with Sadie's ghosty story. So Sadie, which ghost did you romance?
All right. So, as I said, choosing between futuristic and ghosts was easy. After that, it became very, very, very difficult. I'm not saying that there isn't a wide, I feel like there is a very wide subgenre that would have many books of this category that would fit into it. And I could very easily have gone with like the pure paranormal romance. Like there's a lot in like the Sherilyn Kenyon kind of vein, lots of that kind of things. But I honestly felt like I was worried that I would start reading something and that claimed to fit the theme and then realize halfway through that there was no romance with a ghost, or there was a ghost but the ghost was not involved in the romance. There was romance adjacent to the ghost but no actual ghost romance. So I decided instead to go with a more contemporary romance, a kind of a rom-com style book. And given the description, I was pretty sure that there was at least some ghosts in it and some ghosts who would be having romance. So this is The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. Now, when she was 13 years old, Florence Day solved a murder. She told the police where to look for the body of a boy in her class, a boy who no one even knew had been killed. But because of Florence, the police found his body and arrested his father for murder. Because of Florence and the boy's ghost, who came to Florence and asked her to help him. Now, Florence had seen ghosts all her life, both her and her father had, but this was the first time that she was able to help one quite so publicly. The response? Ridicule. At best, claims that she was lying. At worst, claims that she had actually had something to do with the murder herself. For the rest of Florence's high school experience, she had to endure huge amounts of bullying and name-calling from classmates, other members of the town, and local newspapers. Despite the rest of her family's well-known and well-loved presence in town as owners of the funeral home, Florence was never able to escape the image that she had inadvertently created. As soon as she could, Florence left Marymount, South Carolina behind and moved to New York City. That was 10 years ago. Florence is still living in New York, working as a writer. Her first book did okay, not super popular, and can't really be found in too many stores anymore. For the last few years, she has written some of the most popular romance books in the world. Now, this would be a huge step for her career, except for the fact that the books do not have her name on them. No one even knows that she is the one who wrote them, because she is a ghostwriter for the famous Anne Nichols, romance author extraordinaire. For years, Florence has watched as millions of people devoured her beautifully written romantic stories, knowing that she would never get any credit for them. Not that she doesn't appreciate the paycheck. And she wrote romance well, really, really well. That is, until a year ago, when she had her heart broken, torn out of her body, and stomped on a couple times for good measure. Now Florence is en route to her new editor to try and explain to him why she will not be turning in Anne's manuscript on time, and how instead maybe she could write some sort of dark thriller instead, because love doesn't exist and never did. This meeting does not go well. Benji Andor, her new editor, is not impressed and tells her in no uncertain terms that the manuscript better be submitted on time and there will be no extensions given, no matter what. Florence has no idea what she's going to do. Ever since her breakup, she just can't write romance anymore. At least not without killing off one of her main love interests in a pretty bloody and gruesome way. However, her current problem is put on the back burner when she receives a devastating call from home. Her father has died. So forgetting about Anne Nichols and Benji Andor and her manuscript, she boards a plane and heads back to Marymount. When she arrives, she is greeted warmly by her brother Carver, given the cold shoulder by her sister Alice, and does her best to support her mother. However, she's been gone for so long that she seems like an outsider in her own family and isn't sure how she can help and support everyone while also dealing with her own grief. Then there's a knock on the door. Florence goes to answer and finds new editor Benji Andor standing on the front porch. He looks exactly the way he did the last time she saw him. Tall, broad, handsome, very well put together. Did he actually follow her here to make sure she completed her work? That seems a bit much. But then she notices something that Benji did not have the last time she saw him. The slight shimmer that Florence knows is associated with a ghost. Somehow, in the 2 days since Florence was in Benji's office, he died. Over the next few days, while Florence is just trying to get through life and help to fulfill her father's last wishes, Ben and Florence start to get to know each other. Florence knows that once whatever unfinished business and connection to her that is holding Ben to life is completed, then he'll be able to move on. And she's fairly certain that it's her unfinished manuscript, as there's really nothing else that connects the two of them. However, no matter what she tries, she just can't write the happy ending to Anne's book. And so Ben continues to accompany her around Maremont as she looks for an Elvis impersonator to sing at her dad's funeral, or tries to source 1,000 wildflowers without spending all of her life savings, which probably wouldn't even cover it, or tries to lure the murder of crows that sits outside the funeral home to be present as they lay her father to rest, along with a handful of other over-the-top requests that could only have come from her very unique father. At the same time, Florence tries to fit herself back into a family that in a lot of ways she abandoned. At least that's how her sister Alice sees it. And come to terms with the person that she is and was and maybe hopes to be one day. And regardless of how many times she tells herself that Ben is a ghost. And ghosts will always, always leave. She can't stop herself from leaning into him a little bit more, opening up to him about her past, and hoping that, although impossible, maybe they can have a future together. But the fact remains, Ben is a ghost, and nothing will change that. And when it looks like their time together is coming to a close, Florence will need to figure out how to once again say goodbye to someone she loves. This story requires a huge amount of suspension of disbelief. Lots of it is over the top cheesy. The dialogue is not always natural or believable, but honestly, I loved it. I admit that at the beginning of the story, and actually throughout the story, I found Florence really annoying. And while I could understand how a breakup or another bad experience could strongly impact your feelings towards love, I just kind of wanted to tell her to suck it up and do her job. She's a writer, just write like you know what you're talking about and pretend. Even after she returned to Maremont, she acted very immaturely and seemed more like a teenager than a woman in her late 20s. But that all being said, I really liked the connection between her and Ben. I feel like his character was able to kind of balance out her more annoying qualities and made me root for them, even though I knew it wasn't possible. He's a ghost, not going to happen. The secondary cast of characters, I feel like were given more interesting and kind of more fleshed out personalities, like her brother Carver, her sister Alice, her roommate Rose, even. You kind of learn more about them and their lives. Not as much as I would have liked to, though. I think that they deserved a bit more, and I think that the author could have given Florence a bit more of their nuances and created a bit more of a stronger character. But all that being said, I think that this book definitely gives readers, strangely enough, the happy, feel-good, over-the-top feeling and romance that Florence has been trying to achieve through the entire story. I like the addition of fantasy with the kind of the scene and the talking to ghosts, but appreciated that the book otherwise was a very traditional rom-com. It had no other fantasy elements. I think that it would make a good movie. Honestly, I really do. I can see like Anna Kendrick or like Chloe Grace Moretz or like something like that starring in it. I think it would be really good. I bet Netflix would probably make a lot of money on it. It just has that feeling to it. But yeah, I really liked it. I was a bit disappointed that it wasn't published this year because I think it would have been on my top picks. But I did check out, I haven't read it yet, Ashley Poston's other 2024 release, a novel love story, to see if it has the same feels, if it resonates in the same way. So we will see. But yes, this is The Dead Romantics, very much a romance, very much a ghost, very much a romance with a ghost by Ashley Poston.
That's one for Team Ghost. I did see that on the list. Yeah, because I also wanted to make sure after like the debacle of last week where my cat book really didn't have a cat in it, despite having a cat on the cover, and me combing through blog posts to make sure that there was a cat in the story. I also wanted to be like very authentic to the topic at hand. Because I think this all came about when we were looking and ordering through, and sometimes they have like subject headings, and one of them was ghost romance, and we laughed and laughed. And then we had to face the consequences of our actions. which I had to do last night. So, like Sadie, I was definitely combing through list of like, I just don't want a ghost there, not just a ghost observing the romance. I want a romanceable ghost. And then I had to find a book that was also available, which was a little trickier. And then I had to find one that was available on Libby because I walked out of the library without a book. So I was a bit stuck. And again, I wanted, because I am the host of this particular episode, I wanted to be 100% committed to the theme. So here is my confession. I bought this book. I paid $4.99 for the Harlequin Nocturne book by Alexis Morgan, Immortal Cowboy. This is a book that I now own forever. I paid my hard-earned cash to own a digital copy of Immortal Cowboy. Um, so that's something that I have to live with for like the rest of my life. What I really like about the cover, other than the fact that it's just like all arms and she's plastered over him like a koala, is that his eyes are glowing and he seems to be emitting some sort of like blue mist. Very appealing. Yeah, so this is what I read. This is what I bought. This is what I'm going to talk about. Yep. This is my first foray into the Harlequin Nocturne series, which is their paranormal romance say this imprint, I guess. Um yes, and as talked before, I love romance. I love the genre. There's a couple of things that I am not super fond of, and that is amnesia because I think it's horrible and unethical. And I'm also going to put ghosts in that I don't get it because they're dead. As Sadie kept saying, he is a ghost. And so you really have to like accept that your heroine is about to like fall in love with a ghost. And it's uncomfortably close to necrophilia. But they are like, okay, anyways. Let's get into this because there is just so much plot that I need to pack into this. So our main character is Rayanne, but I think I should probably say it with like a southern accent, like Rayanne, whose uncle Ray has just passed away. He was a Vietnam War veteran, and he lived and owned the ghost town of Blessing. He lived by himself, and she used to visit him every summer until the tragic time of 12 to 13, which apparently, Sadie, is when everything ghost related happens. Where she was hanging around in the ghost town, and then suddenly everything changed, and she was hurtled back into the past, where she saw the tragic gunslinging fight in the middle of town, bodies strewn everywhere, and then this super hot gunslinger gets shot and dies. Apparently this was a lot of trauma, and her parents, rather than just thinking it was like the overactive imagination of a 12-year-old, like hauled her to a psychologist and almost got her committed. Anyways, let's not dwell on it. So, after her uncle dies, she inherits the ghost town of Blessing on the stipulation that she needs to live there until September by herself in a remote part of the mountains in a ghost town. Just her all alone. She has a perfectly fine boyfriend named Sean, who she appears to hate. He shows up and he's like, hey, so you're quitting your very good job at the university and like leaving your house to go live in the mountains by yourself? And she says, yeah, what of it? And he's like, oh, well, that okay. I support you in every way, but it would be kind of nice in the summer if we could go on a weekend trip together. To which she replies, oh, disgusting. How could you ask such a thing of me? Um, yeah, and I think we're supposed to hate him, but he seems like the most reasonable person in the entire book, including her mother, who, again, I think we are supposed to hate because she calls her and is worried about her, to which Rayanne is absolutely furious with her that she appears to be going into the mountains to live by herself in the middle of a remote ghost town full of like dilapidated shacks. But it's fine. She knows best. She has to do this for Uncle Ray. She is a historian, just full stop historian, whatever that means. And she decides that she's going to delve into the history of this ghost town of Blessings. She's going to survey it and live there by herself in the mountains where the cougars and the bears live and probably the murderers. Anyways, as she's all by herself. Oh, and there's no cell signal, so it's fine. It's totally fine. While she is alone in this little dilapidated village, she gets the feeling that she is being watched. She can't shake this eerie feeling that no matter where she goes, there is some sort of presence following her. And there is. There 100% is, because we get ghost POV. And it is that gunslinger, Wyatt McCain. And he is haunting Blessings because every year he has to relive the horrible day that he died in a gunslinging fight in the middle of town. He is burdened by the horrible sins that he has committed. And at first, Rayanne is kind of like annoyed at this presence. And then he starts like appearing to her. And then she's like, oh, wait, he's hot. He's really, really hot. And apparently, because she saw him when she was like 13 and he made such an impression, no other man has compared to this guy that she saw die. Uh-huh. And so he's just kind of like creeping along, watching her, including what I can only describe as the most unhinged scene of all of literature, where she gets like caught in the rain and then goes to like the old saloon. And so she's all wet, right? She's all wet. And so she decides to like take off her shirt for what reason I cannot fathom. And she's not wearing a bra because, like, why not? And who should be there creeping around in the saloon but Wyatt McCain? And you get a full description of what's happening there. But it's fine. He's like a gentleman, I guess. Yeah. So he is like very into her and her shirtless, braless ways. And then she also like starts getting into him as she learns more. Actually, she doesn't learn more about him at all. She just sees him and you're like, you're the hot ghost that I saw in my vision. Let's make out. And then, oh my gosh. And what I can only describe as the strangest post-coital scene I have ever read. She's like, oh yeah, like what's your history? Like, who are you? Because like he's a ghost. He's just a full-on ghost that she saw died a long time ago. And he's like, oh, my tragic history, my dark past. I did bad things, baby. And she's like, uh-huh, 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 uh-huh. And then after they have sex, she's like, oh yeah, like what is that dark past? Because like in my vision, I saw a ton of dead bodies. Like, did you have anything to do with that? And he did. But that I guess is a question that can wait until much later. Anyways, we're supposed to figure out, because he has to relive that whole moment where he did his like dark things, his bad past. Can she free him from his eternal torment? Yeah. Anyways, we get some really wild stuff, including like dream sex, which I was like, I mean, that's one way to solve your ghost problem. Like that is one way to make it. And then when they first kiss in real life, some great lines like, I kissed a ghost? What could be crazier than that? Yeah. Yeah, it's a good question to ask. Sean shows up, who is very reasonable. She almost falls through one of the floors and like dies on a beam, but it's fine. Wyatt saves her. And he's like, "Oh my gosh, like you shouldn't be here by yourself. That's really dangerous." And she's so mean to him. They were apparently dating, and she's so mean. And her mom shows up and tries to get her committed because of ghost things. But anyways, the most important things that we really need to delve into is he is a jerk. He's horrible. He's a misogynist, he's sexist, he's horrible. He's a horrible person, but it doesn't matter because he looks really hot. And then one of the craziest like conversations that I have ever read in a book is, so they have sex, obviously, even though he's a ghost. And then she has this moment of like, oh no, I'm not on birth control. Can I can I get pregnant from a ghost? And she's like, oh, wouldn't it be wonderful to like bear his child? And I was like, so they have sex like in the middle of the street of this ghost town with not practicing any safe sex. You have to because he's a ghost. And then she has the moment of like, oh, am I gonna get pregnant? I'm gonna have a ghost baby. That's what I had to read. That's what I had to read with my eyes. That's a conversation that I had to like have. My neurons and synapses in my one precious life were spent really considering that. And she kind of like shrugs it off, like, I guess we'll find out. I'm like, no. Anyways, yeah. So, yeah, they have sex in the street, and then her mom shows up. She just like dusts herself off, I guess, and then just he disappears. Yeah, it's fine. Anyways, his dark past, and she helps cure it, I guess. There's a mystery. We have a happily ever after, I guess. He doesn't have a social insurance number, girl. Like, what job is he gonna do? There's not a lot of need for gunslingers in the year of our Lord 2024. Like, I don't know. Anyways, oh, I read that book. I read the whole thing and now I own it forever. So yeah, that's Immortal Cowboy by Alexis Morgan. I did have to double check that this wasn't our coworker who also writes romance books. It's not. It's not. It's not. Yeah, I loved it. 5 stars. Yeah. All right. Yeah, so that's 2 for Team Ghost. Team Ghost.
Oh, are we really calling yours a win? Yeah, okay.
Oh yeah, I burst out laughing when she has this kind of like moment of crisis where she's like, "Egads, am I gonna get ghost pregnant?" I laughed. I laughed, and the part where he kisses her because like he's a ghost. He's a ghost, and she's like, "Oh, the feeling of his lips on mine." I'm like, "He's a ghost."
Like
It's
cold
fine.
and clammy? I don't
I
know.
was gonna say, yeah, the cold lips, yeah. But now, Corinne, because you bought it, you can read that scene over and over and over again. Get to enjoy it for eternity. Oh,
I took so many like screenshots because I'm like, you're gonna want to remember this. There are so many like wonderful quotations of like people are calling her because again, she quit her job and moves to the mountains to do what? And she's getting all these calls from people being like, "Are you okay?" And she's like, "What an interesting day!" Exclamation point. Yeah, it's maybe not the best written thing in my entire life, but 5 stars, no notes. Not a
I feel like we need to get you the whole series.
I would love to read a follow-up sequel where he tries to integrate back into society with all of his extremely antiquated views about everything and inability to deal with the modern world. Like, what is he going to do? He's an old ghosty.
And the ghost babies. That's clearly going to
I
show
want
up
a
in the
sequel with the ghost
sequel,
babies.
right? Yeah, I want the sequel with the ghost babies.
On the other hand, it might make the act of giving birth a lot easier if they're just able to just like phase right out. Like, maybe we should be considering more ghost babies. Just saying.
Would
Consider
it be
ghost
like
babies.
half and half?
I'm imagining like the vampire baby from Twilight, where it's like the baby almost kills her because she's half vampire.
In again, one of the greatest passages from any book ever written. Yeah, I mean, I really feel like it should have delved a little bit deeper. And maybe Alexis Morgan is working on a prequel that I don't know about because I already spent my $4.99. So, I don't think it's available on Libby. I don't think it's available here at the library, but I'm sure you could interlibrary loan it from somewhere. If you really want to chase this tale down. Hmm. Yeah. Okay. Well, that kind of caps up a triumphant, I would say, a triumphant reign of Team Ghost. We are going to neatly scuttle sideways like a crab into the future. And I feel like these stories may not be perhaps as straightforward as ours, Sadie. So who has the sad I know Virginia's is gonna be weird, and I know Emma's is gonna be slightly traumatic. So hmm. Let's go with Virginia. Let's get it over with.
All right. Well, just preface to say, first of all, that the book that I'm going to talk about today is not coming out until the next year. But when I saw it, I was like, yeah, I think this is, like going to be very fitting. And I feel like it is the book for the episode. And because nothing else, that's when I was desperately trying to find something because this is a hard topic. So, first of all, I want to thank the publisher Berkeley for providing advanced copies for us readers. And I'm also going to try to stay slightly more closer to what's revealed in the blurb, so I don't give too much away. But believe me, there are plenty of things to talk about from the blurb already. An epic battle is about to begin between Thicken Nugget and her daughter Tulip, aka Trainwreck. They are the leaders of two groups of meerkats that Dorothy or Dory has been observing. Dorothy is our wildlife biologist, and she has been in the Kalahari Desert in Africa for the last year or so studying these meerkats. And finally, Thicken Nugget is going to make a move. She is going to lead her group into the territory of her daughter Trainwreck to declare war. What will Trainwreck do? Will she cower and cede her land to her mother, or will she fight back? Dorothy can't wait to find out, but alas, she's not going to ever find out because just when the battle is about to commence, she spotted a lion in the corner of her eye, and that lion is coming right at her. And the next thing she knows, Dory could feel stuff dripping down her face, and she touches it with her hands, and it's gooey and sticky. And yes, she is bitten. She has been bitten, and she is bleeding out. She opens her eyes and she looks over and she sees the lion right next to her. But instead, the lion is not paying her any attention. Instead, it is staring straight up. So Dorothy also looks up and finds herself looking into a circle, a very big circle of green light. And it seems like that she is moving closer and closer towards it along with the alliance. And that's when Dory blacks out for the second time that day. And when she came to, she finds herself lying on a very cold, very metallic table looking thing. And she could hear birds chirping all around her. And she thought, you know what? Maybe I've died. Maybe I've gone to heaven. But this doesn't quite look like heaven as I imagine it. She can see all around her there are these giant tubes that are filled with strange color liquids. And in each of them, a woman is suspended inside. She could also see what's making those chirping noises. They look like owls. Owl like things are making a giant racket, and they are holding what looks to Dorothy like some sort of medical instruments, the kinds that surgeons are holding. And so she's like, she see herself is covered in blue goop. And she's like, okay, whatever these owls are doing to me, I want nothing to do with them. So she tries to sit up, and that elicits a round of angry chirping from the owls. And then they try to stop her, but she manages to kick and scream her way to the door. And running down the doorway, she notices, yup, I'm on a spaceship, and these owls have abducted me. But lucky for her, she ran and ran until she came upon a room that looks like it has some sort of I don't know, escape pods in there. So she jumped into one of them and she started pressing buttons madly and hoping that something will work. And the door starts closing, and that's great. But just as the door closes, something managed to slide right inside. It's the lion again. As the spacecraft launches itself away from the mothership, Dorothy and the lion, they look at each other, and Dorothy says, okay, easy now, we're in this together. And the lion's eyes grow really, really big, and it opens its mouth, and he said, you can talk now? What do you mean I can talk now? You can talk now? Says Dorothy. And that's when they realize somehow they can both understand one another. Most of the things in this book, no one in the book or reading the book has a lot of time to think about the strange and miraculous happenings because they could feel their escape pod plummeting down. So more buttons smashing later, they kind of managed to land the escape pod, and when they got out, they found themselves somewhere they don't really recognize, definitely not that desert that they were from, but hey, at least they are back on Earth and they don't see those owls around, so that's a good thing, right? They figured they would just start walking and hopefully they will came across someone that can help them out. And there's a river nearby, so they thought they were going to go take a drink. And as they were approaching the river, something starts rising out of the river. Something big, something ginormous. And when this creature makes its full appearance, Dorothy stares at it. Staring seems to be a thing that she has to do a lot these days and concludes that she is looking at a dinosaur. It's gotta be. That looks like a dinosaur. A mosasaur to be specific. I think we should run, Toto. And yes, that's the name that she has suggested to the lion, Toto. And they did run for their lives. And the mosasaur has seen them and is now coming after them. But as they were running, it seems to Dory that it's slowing down a little bit. So when she dares to take a moment to turn back and take a look, the mosasaur is being shot at with like fireballs. It's getting kind of on fire, and that's when she noticed that there's some guy who's shooting these fireball arrows at the dinosaur, and the mosasaur is thankfully retreating. Oh, thank goodness, a person, we are safe, we can get home. And she sees this very tall guy in this black overcoat and some furry boots walking towards them, and which she thinks was kind of a weird fashion choice because it's very, very hot where they are. But as he comes closer, she realizes, nope, those are not shoes, those are his feet. They are like hooves, but they are kind of hairy. And then she looks up because the dude is very, very tall. And that's when she noticed there are also horns growing out of his head. Nope, that's not a human. That's another alien. And that's when Dorothy turns to Toto, the talking lion, and says, Toto, I don't think we're in Kalahari anymore. This is I got abducted by aliens and now I'm trapped in a rom-com by Kimberly Lemming. Where Dorothy finds herself on a strange planet accompanied by a talking lion, and that someone, something, who knows, has dropped her and some other humans onto this planet along with a bunch of aliens. And given that there only seems to be female humans and male aliens, you may be able to guess what the plan might be for these different species. Will Dorothy ever get home? Kimberly Lemming is the romance author of books such as That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon, or That Time I Got Drunk and Yeeted a Love Potion at a Werewolf. And so from the titles, you can probably tell what kind of romance books she writes. This book, bonkers from beginning to end, everything you can think of, aliens of all kinds, dinosaurs of all kinds. You can ride dinosaurs, you can fight dinosaurs. It's just nonstop action. You get captured, you escape, you get captured again by someone else. There's lots of running, lots of staring, lots of what is that, and lots of backstabbing, lots of betrayals, lots of conspiracy. You got everything. As the cover review on the author's Instagram says, you got all your tropes, your fated mates, your forced proximity, there's only one bed, there's banter, and along with murderous dinosaurs and Tamagotchis. Anything you can think of is in this book. Now, obviously, I have no reference to gauge this, but given the copious amounts of details and descriptions of body parts that are involved in this threesome, oh yes, it's a threesome, 2 aliens, 1 human, there are lots of bits and pieces that apparently you can creatively use and that will be involved whether you like it or not in the romancing bits in this book. Parts that you know and parts that you don't know because they're two aliens. So, alien anatomy is different from us. And repeatedly, there is many, 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 many scenes. So I'm going to venture to guess that this may be more like a ghost pepper level kind of spiciness, kind of romance. If you're looking for mild and fade to black, this is not it. As I've discovered, this has been a very trying season of Keep It Fictional. There are so many topics that I struggle with. But what I learned is that whatever the topic is, I need to find a book that really fully commits to it. And this one definitely does. Because I realized that I really, really dislike reading lukewarm and bland books, whether it's the plot, character, writing, or the level of emotion. I need people to fully commit. And I think that intensity and that commitment is what makes me tolerate whatever it is that I have to read. So I think if you're going to make it ridiculous, make it as ridiculous as you can be. Just like I think something that we brought up before on this show, how there's some romance, that you have they're running away, like in some very, very big danger and like they have to stop and gaze lovingly at each other and they have to kiss, right? And then we get really annoyed at that because it's like somebody's chasing you, get out of here. But in this book, yes, you're running from some angry aliens. You're running from some like murderous dinosaurs, but you're both riding on the same dinosaur and you accidentally bump into each other and obviously need to throw each other right on the ground right at that moment and stop whatever you're doing and get those feelings out of your system immediately, fiercely. And it's so ridiculous you can't even get angry at it because it's just exactly what you expect to happen. So I know our show is like Whose Line Is It Anyway, where Aisha Tyler constantly reminds us that the points don't matter. But I really feel that I should get at least like 10,000 points for my effort for this episode, points that I can milk for the next year also, and I can cheat my way through the other topics. So anyway, as I said to Emma last night, absolutely not the person to judge the worth of any romance book. But I will say if you're okay with just getting on this dinosaur ride and that it takes you wherever it wants and you don't mind just resigning yourself to it, then this should be a fun ride to you. So again, the book is I Got Abducted by Aliens and Now I'm Trapped in a Rom-Com by Kimberly Lemming.
A million made up points to you, Virginia, for your commitment to the bit. Great cover. Great cover. Okay, does the lion also find romance?
Oh, of course. But okay, it's another lion, so at least there's that. And there's nothing going on with the dinosaurs, not in this one at least. So just the aliens and the human and the threesome. No dinosaurs involved just yet. Lion, do it with lions. Alien lions, I don't know, but yeah, another lion. So yeah. Any other questions?
Lines. Actually, none whatsoever. Yeah, no, that makes total sense to me. I just wanted to know whether the lion also finds romance.
Yes, but we don't get the descriptions between the lions. So maybe in the next book, because I'm pretty sure this is book 1. Oh, and birth control is mentioned. Yeah, so and she's got it, and she's not telling whoever it is that's trying to get these people together that she's still on birth control. So don't worry, there's no danger of any alien babies just yet, until she wants to, I guess.
Love the commitment to fine details in that story.
Where do you go from there?
We're about to find out, Emma.
That's a mistake, I think.
Yeah, come on, Emma. Take us away.
I was going to say, I don't know how I'm going to follow up from that because mine is sure, it's by an author who also writes books about sentient spaceships falling in love with people. But my book was about 2 people falling in love with each other just on a spaceship. So I don't know how I can follow up with the pure banana pants. And I know. I don't know how I can follow up with the pure banana pants of Virginia's book. But yeah, if I'm being told to read a romance, I'm gonna find one with tortured lesbians in it, and even better if those tortured lesbians are in space. So I feel like I was pretty successful with finding a book for this episode. So mine is like kind of a long novella or a short novel. I don't really know exactly. It's a sci-fi space opera where humans have colonized space and live either as a part of the Empire or as a part of navigator clans. And the four navigator clans are in charge of all commerce in the universe. They're kind of in charge of like getting goods, getting traded goods from one place to another. And the clans are the Rat Clan, the Rooster Clan, the Ox Clan, and the Snake Clan. So it's these clans' responsibilities to like open portals into empty space in space called the Hollows, which is a place where faster than light travel can happen, and it's crucial to access the Hollows for trade operations. So the navigators control all of commerce, they control all of the access to the Hollows, but the Hollows are extremely dangerous. They're inhabited by these creepy and mysterious eldritch creatures, as I'd mentioned earlier, that are called tanglers. They're kind of described as like giant space jellyfish sort of things. And the tanglers can sting and kill with their tendrils. So this makes the navigator's job really important, but also extremely dangerous because one misstep could lead to violent death for many across the whole galaxy. And I realized that I actually never shared the title. This book is called Navigational Entanglements by Aliette de Bodard, who does a lot of really fun, kind of usually shorter books, usually a lot of really fun like sci-fi and fantasy novellas. Often involving like tortured, pining sapphic lesbians, with a little bit of space. Sometimes there are sentient spaceships involved in these romances. But as I said before, this one is between two actual human beings. So one of those characters is Viet Ni, and she is a junior in the Rooster Clan. So not quite a navigator yet, but more like a navigator in training. And she's never really been good with people or with politics for that matter. She is very observant and very calculating, but sometimes she's a little bit too blunt to the point that people think she's being rude. So not great social skills for her. And she and three other juniors from the other clans, juniors who have all been deemed failures or screw ups by their clans, are tasked with an impossible mission. A Tangler has escaped from a hole leading to the Hollows, or maybe it was let out of the Hollows on purpose. And this ragtag group of four young navigators have been tasked with finding it and killing it before it can cause devastating destruction to society. So Ni believes that this is a suicide mission. It's doomed for failure, especially since none of the four juniors have ever fought or killed a Tangler before. And the mission is only made worse by the fact that all four of the juniors, all from rival clans, cannot stand to work with one another. So we've got some tropes happening. We've got some forced proximity. We've got some enemies to lovers going on. Um, none of them can really stand each other, but one of the juniors in particular is very hot-headed, very aggressive, and infuriating to work with. But also, Ni cannot stop thinking about kissing her. And what then? How can they possibly succeed at this impossible task set before them if all they want to do is make out with each other? So this other junior is called Hakuk, and she is a member of the Snake Clan, whose expertise is less in cooperation and more in assassination. And Hakuk is very combative. She's very quick to anger, especially with one of the other juniors. And she's also extremely insecure. Her Sifu, or her navigator mentor, is one of the most respected navigators in all of the clans. And yet Hakuk will never live up to his what she believes are unreasonable expectations of her. She feels this need to protect herself from feeling like she's failing others. And but in doing that, she doesn't allow other people to get close to her. Before when she feels like people are going to get close to her, she just cuts them out so that she can save them from the disappointment. And everybody except for Ni seems to understand this. Ni, who can't fully grasp social cues, who herself can also be a little bit oversensitive and prone to insecurities. She just won't leave Hakuk alone, and Hakuk doesn't understand it. Why can't I push this one person away? So the two of them, with the reluctant help from the juniors from the Rat Clan and the Ox Clan, are set to track, to trap, and to kill this Tangler that has gotten loose, or to die in the process, whichever ends up coming first. So it's a very quick book. They don't spend a lot of time at setting up kind of like the history of this, like how, with this space empire of how this galaxy was formed. They're just kind of throwing you into like, and now we have a Tangler loose, and now these four are going to go after it, and we're going to ride along with them on their journey. So the action itself happens very, very quickly, but I enjoyed it. It's a little bit slow at the beginning, but once they kind of get into the groove of like, okay, they've tracked down the Tangler, they're on their hunt to capture it. It moves pretty fast. It was only about 150 pages. And Aliette de Bodard is really great for short little science fiction fantasy novels. I read another one of her books earlier in the year about dragons that was really fun as well. And her books have a lot of influence from Vietnamese culture and traditions. Her website calls this book a ciencia style martial arts in space. So you can always expect some really interesting sort of like mythologies and folklores from Vietnam and China that kind of trickle into her stories. Also with a lot of that like space weirdness. Like the Tanglers are these like you don't really get a good grasp of what they look like. They're these kind of like amorphous, like jellyfish giant creatures that like trickle their tendrils in and poison people. And they're very creepy. But they're also very, very mysterious, which I thought was cool. I don't like my sci-fi being overly explained to me. So I think this book did a great job of just like throwing you in and expecting you to follow along for the ride. So it's described as an enemies to lovers romance, which I don't fully agree with. It feels to me more like two people refuse to work together for unspoken reasons, but they also almost immediately start falling in love with each other. There's not a whole lot of like tension building between them. It's like, oh, I have to work with this person and she can't leave me alone. She doesn't understand that I'm insecure, but also I want to kiss her. And I'm like, just get it over with already. Um, so Ni and Hakkuk don't have a lot of history and don't have enough of that history built in to be enemies. And Hakkuk is more of an enemy of like one of the other juniors, the junior from the Ox clan. She gets in these really awful fights with her. But Ni is pretty quick to call her out on her BS. And the two of them don't have as much of that history built in. They kind of quickly fall into the romance part. There definitely is a lot of pining at the beginning, and I did enjoy the romance. It's mostly that like tortured, like a few little touches here and there, some handholds that last a little bit too long while they're tracking the Tangler. But I enjoyed it. It wasn't too heavy-handed. While Virginia's book was very spicy, mine is like very, very mellow, very wholesome. Like they kiss, they hold hands. That's about as far as it goes. But it was very, very sweet, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. I enjoyed the like two kind of socially awkward, definitely neurodivergent lesbians just can't help but falling in love while they're supposed to be hunting a murderous alien creature. Um, I also enjoyed the whole like Hakkuk pushes away, but Ni is too dense to understand those social cues. I thought that was really nicely done. And I think the author does a really good job of portraying neurodivergence in her characters, and especially these anxieties that the characters have, without really explicitly naming them. I like that it's not too obvious. She does a really good job of kind of building that into their character development, which I liked. It's weird. It's a little bit absurd. It's not as absurd as sentient spaceships falling in love with people. But the book is too short to commit too much time to world building. So the author kind of just like throws you in the middle of the plot and doesn't explain much. It's more about like kind of just riding along with the vibes and really understanding the entirety of this universe. But I enjoy that from my sci-fi. So I really liked it. So if you like a sci-fi book that you don't really have to like fully understand, you're kind of just along for the vibes, for the feeling of it, then I think you would enjoy this one. It's definitely more about the sapphic pining itself than it is about kind of building up this really complex space universe. Um, but if you like short fiction, if you like space operas, if you like books that are really weird, but you could read them all in one sitting, this one was only like 150 pages. Or if you're like me and you like some good old tortured lesbians, then I recommend that you check out Navigational Entanglements by Aliette de Bodard.
Nice. Although I still think you should have read the book where someone falls in love with a spaceship.
But Virginia already read that one. She already talked about it.
She has a bunch of them that has the same. Yeah. I think there's a few of them. There's few different spaceships involved in this.
I picked this one because it was published in 2024. So I was trying to kill multiple birds with one stone. But I think maybe the next time we do futuristic romance in the future, because clearly we enjoyed ourselves so much with this topic, that I can read that one.
Yeah, that's definitely a thing that's going to happen. So we've had some ghosts, we have had some aliens, and we have had just like regular old humans. So I would like to wrap up today by asking all of my book friends, which kind of like supernatural and or futuristic creature do you think has the best literature around it? So if you had to like choose which supernatural creature has like the best books. So if you're thinking of vampires, you could be thinking of Dracula, or I believe you read Camilla, or no, yeah, Camilla. But which one is it? Camilla is the
It's Carmilla.
Carmilla. Yeah, Camilla is a very different thing. Maybe I was thinking Camilla Parker Bowles. But anyways, or like werewolf literature, like Bride that I read this year and deeply traumatized me. Or aliens if you're into threesomes with aliens. Like which like creature do you think has the best literature going?
And it's not just romance, right? Or we're talking about, okay.
Just general creature features. Virginia will edit out this empty air as we contemplate this. Yeah. I'm gonna throw my hand in the ring and as much as it really pains me to say this, because I do love a really good ghost story, there's not a ton of it. I love my Simone St. James. I really do. She does really good ghost stories, but I don't think there's a lot of it. I'm gonna go vampires. They're not my favorite of all the creatures, but I feel like they do have the best books. I feel like people really want to delve into that, and you can use like it's one of the creatures that you can use so many metaphors or analogies, or like you can do so much with it. It's so versatile, and they like definitely have the best clothes.
I was going to do vampires too, but I felt like that was really obvious because I feel like they have the most literature surrounding them.
I
Like
thought you were gonna
they
say they have the most clothes, which is probably true.
Yeah, like werewolves are usually naked, if I understand correctly.
I feel like this year I've read a lot of pretty good like indigenous horror and stuff that kind of leads into like Korean and like Canadian indigenous folklore. So I can't think of like the very specific names of creatures because like different First Nations have different names for them. But like Bad Cree, the Bad Medicine book that I read a few weeks ago for the Canada Reads episode, or the I Read Canadian Day episode. I've been really enjoying those kind of like creepy, like folklore mythology sort of stories. So I'm gonna kind of give an all-encompassing answer of like indigenous demons and monsters and things.
Yeah, I think demons are probably good. I just feel like zombies get really misunderstood. So I do like a good zombie, and they're good, like, they're good stories. I think because you can, again, just like the other kind of things that consider monsters or whatever, like, there is like there's more books that are kind of exploring more of it, like, and just not like just them like going around, and chasing after people. So I feel like zombies. I do want to see more books about banshees. That's what I would love to see more of. I can't think of one. I'm like, there's one YA series that I read very long time ago about banshees, but I would love to see more banshees books. I think.
I feel like there's a banshee romance
Yeah, but
coming
I'm out for
out.
that. So, banshee something else.
What is it about banshees that interests you?
I
Just
don't
kind of
know.
like
They
that
just because I feel like how when we see in the library when we see kids that are being kids and they're just like I've had it for the day, I just want to like scream my way out of the door. I want to do that. So as an adult, since I cannot do that, I think as a banshee, that's your job, is to just scream your head off. So I like to do that, I think.
so it's like aspirational.
Yeah, kind of, right? Just, yeah, living vicariously through somebody else who can scream their heads off and is allowed to do it. I think that's great. I don't know.
Hey, there are no wrong answers. There are no wrong answers. All right. Well, I think we've hmm. We have journeyed to some very interesting corners of literature today. We have seen firm representation from Team Ghost. We have seen strange representations from Team Future Alien, kind of.
Not kind of, definitely aliens.
Yeah, yours definitely. I'm trying to like, does Emma was just like a human.
Mine had aliens in it, but the people that fell in love were humans. It was humans falling in love in a futuristic space setting while fighting aliens and also each other.
Well, as is the tradition of Whose Line Is It Anyways, I'm going to arbitrarily choose the winner. And it's going to be Virginia, who really made a big old college try to read a romance in that there was romance adjacent. I don't know if I would call it a romance. Had some rom-com elements and
And there's like so much romance in it.
but
So
okay,
much.
romance versus just having it out with
Oh,
someone.
so much. Any like on the whole spectrum, whatever you want to think of it, it's there. Pining, sure, there is definitely pining for these aliens when one of them got captured, and they're like, oh no, like and then like she wants to go back and like rescue him right away, but the other alien who's like, oh no, no, you just stay safe, you need to, oh no, like just like I said, the whole spectrum of it, so much.
Well, then Virginia is undisputedly the winner of this episode, as she will remain the most haunted by what she has read. And with that, we say goodbye to all of our book friends and happy reading.